everyone, this is Logan589XB here for another episode of the Marvel Talk. It is 1 a.m. March 23rd, 2019, so I'm probably not going to talk too loud. I'm going to be pretty quiet for the most part because I'm a bit tired and, just kind of don't really have, I'm not super, energized right now. But I do want to talk about, of course, the merger finally being complete. That is right. Unless you have been living under a rock, which if you're watching this video, you probably aren't, because by the time you've seen this video, you've probably already seen 50 other videos talking about the exact same thing. And that, of course, is after over a year of anticipation and waiting, the Fox-Disney deal is now officially done, and Disney now officially owns 20th Century Fox, Blue Sky Studios, and all the other stuff that Fox owned outside of the Fox TV network, the regional Fox Sports networks, Fox Business, and Fox News. Everything else, though, Disney got. And of course, that means a lot. Not just for us Marvel fans, but of course for the entertainment industry at large. People have been talking about forever about how big of an impact this is going to be on the film landscape. And it's going to be a huge deal, don't get me wrong. But of course, the reason why you're here is, of course, we're going to talk about Marvel. But I'm not going to talk about just Marvel, but it's going to be primarily on Marvel. Like 80% of this discussion is going to be about Marvel. So, I guess let's get started. So, of course, the main thing about this merger that people were excited about, of course, was that Marvel is now pretty much whole again. They don't have every single character. I think they're still missing She-Hulk and Namor. And, of course, they don't own Spider-Man, but he's in the MCU anyway because of the deal with Sony. So they have like 95% of their universe back. They have most of their universe back, which is awesome, especially now that Endgame is coming out and, they're going to have to start building up the next couple of phases. Like, what's going to be the next big villain of the next era of the MCU? Kevin Feige recently declared the first 3 phases of the MCU the Infinity Saga, which I think most people are going to say years from now, like 20, 30, 40 years from now. People are going to look back on this era of the MCU, Iron Man 1 to Endgame, as the golden age of the MCU. Because this is something that people have said, not just me, it's something that tons of people have already said. And I know it might sound weird to people that haven't grown up in this generation, but I can tell you right now, the MCU is this generation's Star Wars. Star Wars, this generation, has been a little flat. And I'm not going to get into the whole controversy of The Last Jedi or whatever, because that's been talked about to death. I'm not even talking about that. I mean, The Force Awakens was huge, but it was going to be huge no matter what, because it was the return of Star Wars, but even after that, like Rogue One, and of course The Last Jedi, everything after The Last Jedi, is what kind of crumbled Star Wars for a lot of people. I personally liked The Last Jedi, but I also haven't rewatched it since I saw it in the theater, so maybe I'd have a different opinion if I rewatched it, especially after so many videos I've seen of people talking about the movie and the kind of stuff that it does and the problems with it. But overall, I liked The Last Jedi, but I'm not here to get into a flame war. If you hate The Last Jedi, then by all means, you're allowed to hate it. I'm not really here to jump on the defense of The Last Jedi. I'm not a super big Star Wars fan. I mean, I like Star Wars. Grew up with Star Wars, especially the Lego games. I could probably talk about the Lego Star Wars games forever, but different story for another time. Point is, Star Wars has not been too hot this generation. The Force Awakens, most people liked, but there's people that were like, it's kind of a rehash of A New Hope. Rogue One, I would say we got positive reception, but it wasn't as big as Force Awakens, of course. And then Last Jedi came in, split the fan base in half, and destroyed Star Wars' reputation for years to come. Most people actually liked Solo, but like I said, the reputation of The Last Jedi completely destroyed the image of Star Wars for a lot of people, and it's become apparent. People don't talk about Star Wars as much as they used to even a couple years ago. And while that obviously sucks for Star Wars, it hasn't really affected Disney's other major franchise. The one that pretty much hit its stride right as Star Wars was starting to lose popularity. Now, the MCU, of course, didn't start out as the juggernaut of the movie landscape that it is today. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. The movies were great and they were successful, but it wasn't until the Avengers came out in 2012 that it changed the landscape of entertainment forever. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I legitimately mean that. Have you DC started their own cinematic universe. You know, Universal tried and failed to start their cinematic universe with the classic Universal monsters, and that failed on the first try. And there's been tons of other people that have been trying to build up their own cinematic universes and connected crossovers. Like, you cannot say, oh, and Sony with their amazing Spider-Man universe that they tried to build that also failed completely on the ground, and that's the reason why they made the deal with Marvel to bring Spider-Man to the MCU. Like, the Avengers changed everything. It really did change everything for the movie industry. Easily. Not even a debate. But that's also when the MCU really started to gain popularity. Now, obviously, the Avengers was huge. Like, it was over $1 billion. I think it was 1.5 billion, I think. The point is, it was huge. It was massive. And I remember hearing about it. I remember seeing the posters. I mean, I never saw it. I wasn't into the MCU back then, but I definitely saw it. But yeah, I mean, the Avengers, man, it changed everything. And that's when the MCU started to gain fans. And, you know, it kept on going. You know, Iron Man 3, the first movie after the Avengers, broke $1 billion. An Iron Man movie broke $1 billion. That's impressive. The previous two movies were successful. They got over 600 million. That's pretty decent. But it broke $1 billion with Iron Man 3, solely because of the Avengers. And then, of course, Guardians of the Galaxy, humongous hit, way bigger than anyone thought it was going to be. The Winter Soldier, considered to this day one of the best, if not the best movie in the franchise. Civil War, Spider-Man in the MCU, Civil War, Age of Ultron. It's a bit controversial, but most people loved it. Still broke $1 billion. And then, of course, now we have Phase 3 with, you know, Spider-Man Homecoming, Guardians 2, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Infinity War, Thor Ragnarok, and now Captain Marvel, which has been easily the most controversial of the MCU movies. I'm not going to get into that today. All I'll say is I liked Captain Marvel. Goose was great. Nick Fury was great. The Skrulls were great. Did I say the Skrulls? Yeah. The Skrull was great. The Skrulls were great. I think I'm butchering their names. Sorry. Yeah, the Skrulls were great. Nick Fury was great. Goose was great. But overall, the movie is definitely like in the bottom 10, maybe even bottom 5 for me of the MCU. But at the end of the day, I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, for most people, this movie is just an appetizer for Endgame anyway. Oh, did I mention Endgame? That game that was going to be probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest movie of all time. Is it gonna break Avatar? No, but it's gonna be close. Okay, maybe that's even going a bit far. Infinity War broke the 2 billion mark. Will Endgame break the 2 billion mark? Maybe, but I'm actually not completely confident on that. I don't know. I kind of feel like Infinity War. I feel like Infinity War was much more. The marketing was much bigger. Like, you know, this is the culmination of 10 years. We have all these characters fighting the big threat, Thanos. So I don't think it's going to be as big. It's not going to be as big as Infinity War. But it's going to be like 90% there. Like, it's going to be obviously huge. It's going to be the biggest movie of the year. Easily. Not even a question. It's going to be the biggest movie of the year. Easy. No question. Is going to be over 1.5. It will probably... It has a good chance of breaking 2 billion, but I don't be surprised if it doesn't. But it's going to break at least 1.5. And the reason why I say that is because the marketing has been. I mean, there's obviously been a bunch of marketing, but I don't think it's been as in your face as it was for Infinity War, because Marvel is deliberately hiding the movie from us. They don't want you to know anything about this movie going in, other than here's the characters that survived, and that's it. They are not showing you anything, which I love. I love that they're not showing anything. I want to be able to go into that movie completely blind. I've mostly avoided any of the possible Endgame leaks. So of course there's still going to be leaks, but there's always leaks for literally everything. So obviously avoid leaks if you can. But Marvel is not showing us like anything. And according to Kevin Feige, they've only been showing us the first 20 minutes or so. What we have seen in all the trailers and promos so far has been the first 20 minutes. There is still over 2 hours of stuff we know nothing about, and that is awesome. I love that they're doing it that way, but because they're not quite as aggressive, because they're trying to hide the movie, that's why I say it's not going to break 2 billion, or it might not break 2 billion. Now, at the end of the day, it's the sequel to Infinity War, so there's a very good chance it's going to break that 2 billion and be right alongside Infinity War, but don't be shocked if it doesn't hit that. And then, of course, after Endgame, we're going to have Far From Home, which I think could also break $1 billion. I'm surprised that that Homecoming didn't. Homecoming came close. It was at like 880 million, so it was almost at 900, which is obviously amazing and is the best a Spider-Man movie has done so far. Probably because it's actually in the MCU and it has the good reputation of the MCU to back it up. But especially after Infinity War and Endgame, people are going to be hyped as hell for Far From Home. And I think Far From Home will be the first Spider-Man movie to break $1 billion. I'm saying that right here. And of course, the main reason we're here is what's beyond. And that, of course, is actually, there's already a couple projects that are already announced. Well, not officially, but more or less officially. Like, Kevin Feige's already talked about Black Widow is finally getting her own movie. And I know this is something that's been harped on a ton, but why did Captain Marvel get a movie before Black Widow? I don't really know. I don't know what was the holdup. Like, I get that Captain Marvel is more of a main character than Black Widow is, but come on, Black Widow's been in the MCU for 9 years. Why doesn't she have a movie already? Well, at least it's on the way. It's on the way, so that's great. So there's going to be that. Doctor Strange 2 is going to be shooting soon, I think. Guardians 3 is happening with James Gunn, by the way. Woo woo. That was announced, I think, last week, and that was awesome to see. A lot of people were shocked to see Disney actually backtrack on that whole fiasco and actually admit they were wrong. Something that Disney does not like to do very often. Disney very much will, kick something into the ground with that kind of stuff. Well, they will do everything possible to not admit that they were wrong. But they didn't put out some official statement saying that we were wrong. Obviously, the fact that James Gunn was brought back just was Disney admitting, okay, we shot a bit early. We fired the gun too early. Clearly, we made a mistake. And so yeah, James Gunn's Guardians 3 is obviously coming later than it would have before the firing. It was supposed to. Guardians 3, I think, would have been shooting by now if James Gunn wasn't fired, but because he was, and he got the deal with Warner Bros. For Suicide Squad, it's not going to be happening. And yeah, Disney did confirm that Guardians 3 will start shooting once Suicide Squad is done. Once James Gunn is done with Suicide Squad, he'll get right to work on Guardians 3, which I believe is going to be like 2021, because I think Suicide Squad's going to come out in 2020. So yeah, it'll probably start shooting in 2021, which is a bit unfortunate because it would be out next year. The movie would have been out next year if it wasn't for this whole fiasco with Alan Horn and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I'm okay with it. You want to know the reason why? because the movie got delayed because of this whole fiasco with James Gunn and Alan Horn firing the gun too quickly. I need to stop saying firing the gun too early. It's so obvious. Fires the gun early. Gun. Get it? But yeah. But you want to know what the benefit though is? The benefit of them delaying it. The benefit of them delaying it means that by the time in 2021 that James Gunn can start shooting, he can actually use Fantastic Four and the X-Men. Something he probably would not have done beforehand. If the movie started shooting now, he wouldn't have done it because the deal would not have been done by the time he started shooting. And the script would have been locked in at that point. But now, if he's going to be shooting in 2021, he can incorporate the Fantastic Four or the X-Men. Something that he has expressed desire in doing. He wanted to have the Silver Surfer, I believe, in one of the Guardians movies. I heard that somewhere. I heard that he wanted to have the Silver Surfer in Guardians if he could have. If they had the rights, he would have loved to put him in there. Now we can put him in there. Now James Gunn can put the Silver Surfer in Guardians 3. Because by the time it's going to start shooting, you know, like the deal's done. The deal's done. So 2 years from now, when he's going to start shooting, he can incorporate him now. He can incorporate Silver Surfer. He can be the one to introduce Silver Surfer to the MCU. That's awesome. So at least one good thing came out of this whole situation with James Gunn. We're going to get a DC movie directed by him, which is going to be very interesting, on top of Guardians 3, and he can incorporate new characters like Silver Surfer if he wants. So ultimately, it's a win-win situation for us, and for James Gunn, despite all the stuff he went through last year with the controversy and him getting fired. But hey, at least we got some good out of it, so I'll take what we can get. But yeah, so Black Widow, Guardians 3, Shang-Chi, I believe they just hired a director for it. Doctor Strange 2 is going to be shooting, if not this year, then next year. Like, you know, Scott Derrickson, the director from the first movie, is coming back. You know, Doctor Strange 2 it's in the works. And Black Panther 2 has already been confirmed. Ryan Coogler is, of course, coming back. We don't know anything about Ant-Man 3 yet. It's probably a bit soon for them to talk about Ant-Man 3, but that'll probably happen because, you know, everyone gets a trilogy, so Ant-Man 3 will obviously be happening. Not any time soon, of course. I mean, we just got Ant-Man and the Wasp like 9 months ago, but like 2023, 2022 is when we'll probably see. Maybe I guess they could technically do 2021. I don't know. Like, you know, like it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while before we see Ant-Man 3. But Doctor Strange 2, Black Panther 2, Guardians 3, Eternals as well, and Black Widow are already confirmed movies on top of Far From Home, which of course Far From Home is a part of Phase 4, even though it's not gonna feel like it because it's still gonna have the old Marvel logo. And it's coming out the same year. It's coming out 2 or 3 months after Endgame. So it's going to feel like it's a part of the same era, even though it's technically not. Okay, here's the thing. This actually brings me up to a side discussion real quick. Will Marvel change their logo again? Every phase they've changed their logo. Phase 1 was the classic Marvel comic intro that they've had since the original Spider-Man in 2002, but edited to say Marvel Studios instead of just Marvel. Then in Iron Man, not Iron Man 3. And then and then in the Avengers and Iron Man 3, they changed it so it's a little different. It's mostly the same, but now they changed it so it doesn't say Marvel Studios, it just says Marvel again, but it's got a white box around it. It's a very minor change, but there's that. But they've basically had the same logo for all of Phase 1, and then they added it for Iron Man 3, which of course is the first movie in Phase 2. Then Thor the Dark World through Civil War had the 3D comic book logo. like a new logo that was still, had the comic book pages, and it of course said Marvel Studios. But on the poster and in the movie, it still said Marvel. Like the logo itself still said Marvel Studios, but like on the poster it just said Marvel, not Marvel Studios. Even though on Iron Man 2, Captain America: The First Avenger, and Thor, it said Marvel Studios, but not in the Marvel font. It was just like a different font, different color palette, but it still said Marvel Studios. If you guys pay attention to this stuff, you already know. But starting with the Avengers, they went back to just instead of having it say Marvel Studios in like the special font or whatever, now it just said Marvel, like the regular Marvel logo, and that was it. All the way up until Doctor Strange, they just had Marvel. That's all it was. And then starting with Doctor Strange, they got rid of the 2013 intro and brought in the current one that we have now. That says Marvel Studios in the Marvel font on both sides and on the movie itself. On the poster, of course in the movie it says, it has the actual logo, but like on the poster and everything, it actually says Marvel Studios. Every Marvel Studios movie now says Marvel Studios and not just Marvel, which is to distinguish itself, of course, from the other Marvel movies out there like X-Men and stuff like that. They want to make it clear that this is a Marvel Studios movie, not just a Marvel movie. And I think that's going to continue. I think they're going to keep the current logo. I don't think they're going to change it again, because I think the current logo they have is the best one, and there's nothing that they need to change about it. Now, they'll probably change the actual logo, like, in the movie. Like, they're not going to have the same... They'll change the fanfare to something else. They'll probably have a different animation that's not, the current one they have had since 2016. But I think they're going to keep the same actual logo. Like, Marvel, and then it has Studios with, like, the bars on the top and bottom. I think that's staying. I think that is here to stay. There is no reason to change it. But they'll probably change the animation and at least the song. But I could be wrong. Maybe they'll just keep that current logo they'll just keep it, because really there's no reason to change it, like, at all. Outside of changing it just because it's been a tradition to change the logo for every new phase. Well, every new phase for the second movie. That's another thing that's kind of weird is not only have they changed the logo every phase, but they've only changed it for the second movie of that phase. Like, Iron Man 3 still had the logo from the Avengers. Civil War still had the logo from Ant-Man and Age of Ultron. And Far From Home is still going to have the same logo as Endgame. But, Black Widow or whatever the first movie of 2020 is going to be, now that might have a new logo. We don't know yet. But once again, I'm getting off track. We'll see when it happens. We'll just have to wait and see. But my point is, we know some of the movies that are lined up, but none of them are particularly super interesting. And I'm not saying the movies are bad. I mean, I'm gonna be hyped for all of those, but it's kind of like, okay, Doctor Strange 2, cool. Black Panther 2, cool. Black Widow. Now, Black Widow of the current lineup that we know about is the one I'm excited about the most. That one I'm actually really excited for. But the others, obviously, I'm gonna go see them. They're gonna be good. They're gonna be great and all, but I'm not really hyped for them. Now, of course, we haven't seen anything, so there's nothing to really get hyped about yet. But yeah. But now we have the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and Deadpool. Now, obviously, Feige's already got the next probably 3 phases already planned out. But he's obviously going to change them around to accommodate. I mean, look what happened when they had Spider-Man. Go back to the October 2014 press conference where they revealed all the Phase 3 movies. There are several movies that they added and or removed from that. For example, Ant-Man the Wasp wasn't there yet. Spider-Man Homecoming obviously wasn't there yet. They also had the Inhumans on there, something that never saw the light of day. And if you don't know why Inhumans was canceled, by the way, and turned into a TV show, Ike Perlmutter, someone that isn't exactly beloved in the Marvel community, for various reasons that I won't go into here, but if you just search up a video on Ike Perlmutter and, kind of the war between him and Kevin Feige, you'll see why people don't like Ike Perlmutter. But point is, so Marvel Studios, up until 2015, was under the control of Ike Perlmutter. Now, no, Kevin Feige was always president. He's the one that, of course, had creative control of the movies, but Marvel Studios was still under Marvel Entertainment. It wasn't under Walt Disney Studios. Even though Marvel was owned by Disney, Marvel Studios was still inside of Marvel Entertainment. Whereas nowadays, Marvel Entertainment and all the other Marvel stuff is its own thing, but Marvel Studios is under the Walt Disney Studios. Like, it's under, like, the control of Walt Disney Studios. Now, that doesn't mean anything for the most part. All that really means is that Ike Perlmutter doesn't interfere anymore. Basically, Inhumans only existed because Ike Perlmutter wanted, like, Marvel's X-Men. Well, obviously Marvel and X-Men, X-Men is Marvel, but you know what I mean? Like, because obviously back then they didn't have the rights. So, Ike Perlmutter wanted something that could be as big as X-Men without being X-Men, because they didn't have the rights for it. And that's why he wanted to do Inhumans, and that's why Inhumans existed. But once Kevin Feige got his freedom from the shackles of Ike Perlmutter, when Disney, at the request of Kevin Feige, I should point out, Disney didn't forcefully move Marvel Studios out of Marvel Entertainment. Kevin Feige asked for it, because he did not want to put up with Ike Perlmutter anymore, because it was interfering with his work. And Ike Perlmutter, his stuff goes way beyond Inhumans. Like, he wanted to cut the budget hard for Age of Ultron and Civil War. And Feige said, hell no. And he had to fight with Perlmutter until eventually it was all resolved when Disney moved Marvel Studios over to Walt Disney Studios instead of being under Marvel Entertainment. So now he answered to Alan Horn instead of answering to Ike Perlmutter, and Alan Horn gave Feige all the creative control that he was denied when he was under Ike Perlmutter. Which meant that now he could do Civil War the way he wanted. He didn't have to do Inhumans because he didn't want to do Inhumans. He was only doing it because of Ike Perlmutter. Okay, I know I'm going on a tangent here, but point is, screw Perlmutter. Screw Ike Perlmutter. I think that's something we can all agree on. And Inhumans was on there. Of course, that didn't happen, at least as a movie. We got the infamous TV show that we all have completely forgotten about today, except for right now, because now I'm reminding you that it existed. I am sorry for reminding you that Inhumans existed. You want to know how much that movie really fell out of, like, it practically didn't even exist anymore? Whenever I think of the Marvel TV shows, I think, okay, so there's the Netflix shows, there's Runaways, there's Cloak and Dagger, there's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then there's Agent Carter. I completely forget about Inhumans, which is the thing that everyone on the planet wants. So that's good. But, even Marvel is completely and totally buried in Inhumans ever since that whole thing happened, because even Marvel knows that show was just, yeah. So, in a way, it's kind of a shame, because it means the Inhumans are probably not going to come to the big screen anytime soon, because they want to wash away, or let the bad taste of the TV show kind of linger for a little bit. Besides, it's not like they need to use the Inhumans right now when they have, something even better. I know that the Inhumans are not just discount X-Men. I know they're way different than that, but you know what I mean. But, if you go back to that, the schedule is totally different. But once they added Spider-Man, they added Ant-Man the Wasp, and they got rid of the Inhumans. They also shuffled all of the release dates and they delayed them. Like, Black Panther was supposed to come out in November 2017, and Thor Ragnarok was supposed to come out the same day that Homecoming came out. And Captain Marvel was supposed to come out in November of 2018. Of course, none of that happened. It all got pushed back to accommodate for Homecoming, and they also added Ant-Man and the Wasp and got rid of Inhumans once he was out of the reins of Ike Perlmutter and allowed to do his own thing under Alan Horn at Walt Disney Studios. So, yeah. Imagine that times 3. Because now he's going to have to not only add the X-Men, he's also going to have to add the Fantastic Four, and he's going to have to add Deadpool. Now, of the 3, which one are we going to see the soonest? It's going to be Deadpool. Why? Because Deadpool is not going to have to be rebooted and set up. Even though it hasn't been officially confirmed by Kevin Feige, or even Bob Iger for that matter, it's pretty much confirmed that the current incarnation of Deadpool is staying. Yeah, I mean like the current incarnation. Rated R, all that. Ryan freaking Reynolds is staying. He even put out a tweet the day the acquisition was finalized. It's like, like today is the first day of pool or whatever. It's like a picture of Deadpool with a Mickey Mouse hat inside of a school bus, and it says Disney on the bottom. Like, now that of course could just be one of his famous joke tweets, and sure, it probably was kind of like when the deal was first announced. He had the thing where he was like, yeah, it's a shame. It turns out you can't actually blow the Matterhorn, and it's a picture of him in Disneyland once again with the Disney hat or the Mickey Mouse hat, and he's being like handcuffed and taken escorted out of Disneyland by a fat Tony Stark. So obviously it's one of those joke tweets, but the reason why it's all but confirmed is because if you go on the Disney website, now not the main Disney website, not the one that everyone goes to, I mean like the corporate website, the WaltDisneyCompany.com. If you go there, right on the front page, Disney has spent no time letting the world know that we own Fox, because they have Shape of Water, Avatar, The Simpsons, and, wait for it, Deadpool. Right alongside Rey from Star Wars, Captain Marvel, and all their other franchises. Deadpool is right there alongside all the other famous franchises that they own. If that's not confirmation that Deadpool, the current incarnation of Deadpool, is staying, then I don't know what is. The fact that Disney put him front and center on their own website. That right there is confirmation that when Bob Iger said that Deadpool was staying, he meant it. When he said that he's going to stay rated R and that this incarnation's not going anywhere, he meant it. It'd be one thing if he just said it, but the fact that he put it on the website. And it's not like in some random corner where it's like, oh yeah, we own Deadpool. No. It's on the front page. It's on the front page of the corporate website. That would not be there if he didn't mean it. Needless to say, Deadpool is going to be the first one to show up, because he doesn't have to be rebooted. He doesn't have to be set up. He doesn't have to go through several movies to be set up. He doesn't have to worry about... Now, obviously, there's the whole thing about mutants not existing in the MCU up until now, but... and that's going to be a problem for the rest of the X-Men. I know Marvel's going to find a way to figure that out, but... he doesn't have to worry about any of that. Because of one simple reason. He's Deadpool. He breaks the fourth wall. He can literally... this is the thing people have been proposing, is that time travel device from Deadpool 2. Just use that and make it so that he accidentally... he messes it up so badly that he just teleports to the MCU and he's like, oh, what the F did I just do? Or what the F is this? Something like that. And now he's somehow in the MCU, and of course he's gonna make a billion MCU Disney jokes, and and all that stuff. It's so easy to bring him, the current incarnation of Deadpool, to the MCU. It's so easy because he's Deadpool. It's so easy. He can literally just you don't even have to do the time travel device from Deadpool 2. You don't even have to tie in the previous movies to have it work. You can literally just have him show up and be like, "Hey, look, I'm in the MCU now." You can literally just do that and it would work. I think it'd be cool if they tied in the time travel device from Deadpool 2. And no, that does not mean that it makes the previous two movies canon to the MCU. No, it doesn't, because he'd be going from one universe to another universe. Because the time travel device, or whatever the device is called, would be totally screwed up, and he'd just somehow, through the magic of comic bookness, he just somehow ends up transporting to the MCU. Which does not make the previous two movies canon. They are not going to be a part of the MCU. He just goes from that X-Men canon from the Fox X-Men canon. He's just here in the MCU because of that device. Or he could just show up and be like, "Hey, look, I'm in the MCU now. Hey, look, hey, and like when they start like bringing in the X-Men, they could be like, "Hey, wait, you're not Stewart or McAvoy. Hey, you're not Hugh Jackman." like come on, it's Deadpool. He's gonna have so many jabs at Disney and the MCU and the Fox X-Men and all that stuff. It's gonna be great, and he's gonna be the easiest to incorporate because, like I said, he's Deadpool. You can literally just slap him on in there and it works. It's literally that easy. The other characters are not going to be as easy, though. The Fantastic Four is going to be fairly easy because they can fit in very easily into the MCU right now. Now, of course, there's going to be the argument, like it would be for the X-Men, how come we haven't seen them up to this point? How come they weren't there for the Battle of New York? How come they weren't there for the fight against Thanos? How come they weren't there during Ultron? How come they weren't there for this and that? And, well, simple. You can just have it be like they were deep in space doing stuff, because the Fantastic Four are known as explorers and adventurers on top of being superheroes. They can just be off in space doing something, or they could just literally be like sitting somewhere. I don't know. Like there's easy ways you can incorporate the Fantastic Four, and of course Deadpool is super easy. You can he can literally just appear and be like, "Hey, looks like I'm owned by Disney now. Now I'm in the MCU. How great is that?" X-Men is going to be a lot harder because you have to incorporate, because it's not as simple as the Fantastic Four, where it's like, well, where was the Fantastic Four? And you could just be like, they were in space. No, because with the X-Men, you got to establish mutants and all that stuff. And of course, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, they're supposed to be mutants, but they're not mutants in the MCU because of the whole rights situation. So are they mutants now? Are they going to reveal that Scarlet Witch is indeed a mutant, or is she going to stay like as she is now? Like there's so many things you have to do to incorporate the X-Men, which is the reason why they're probably going to be introduced last. I think we're going to see Deadpool first, then the Fantastic Four, then X-Men. I think that's how they're going to do it. Maybe it could be the other way. Maybe it could be Fantastic Four first. I can see them doing Fantastic Four first, but it'll be either Deadpool or Fantastic Four. But the X-Men's going to be last. They're going to wait on X-Men because they're going to have to establish why mutants are in the MCU and all that. So they're going to have to establish mutants first. They have to establish mutants. Now you could say, well, once again, Deadpool's a mutant, but once again, Deadpool's fourth wall breaking. There's no rules with Deadpool. There is no rules with Deadpool. So he can get around that whole, well, what about mutants? He can get around the whole mutants problem. The rest of the X-Men, no. They can't do that. They got to establish that first. And once again, Fantastic Four, they could just be off in space or something like that. Now, when's the earliest I think we're going to see them? I know I just went over like when I think they're going to show up first, but I just said like who I think that they're going to when they're going to show up in order. Like who's going to show up first in order. But like how soon are we actually going to see them? Like let's talk about the first one. And then one of the reasons why you might think that the Fantastic Four are going to come before Deadpool. The Baxter Building. Everyone has talked about to death about, in Homecoming, Tony sells Avengers Tower. and someone bought it because in Far From Home, in the Far From Home trailer, you can see construction going on at what is formerly Avengers Tower, and someone bought it. And the two popular theories have been Oscorp or the Baxter Building. Now, of course, they already had this whole thing planned out. So realistically, because they've already had this whole thing planned out for years, they had it planned out since Homecoming, at least, which was a couple of years ago, before the deal was even announced. It's probably Oscorp, which I'd be fine with. But it's totally possible they can just scrap that and make it the Baxter Building. And then obviously, heck, they could literally introduce them in a Spider-Man movie. And like the next Spider-Man movie, which, oh yeah, by the way, Sony will renew the deal to keep Spider-Man in the MCU. I don't want to hear it. They're going to renew it. If they don't, there's going to be riots in the streets, and you know it. There's going to be riots in the streets if they don't. And besides, Amy Pascal, once. The one that threw a sandwich at Kevin Feige's face in 2014. Literally, that's a real thing that happened. Look it up. The one that threw a sandwich at Kevin Feige's face when Kevin Feige asked her if they could incorporate, about Spider-Man coming to the MCU in 2014. She wants to see the deal continue. She likes having Spider-Man in the MCU now, probably because of how much money they're getting without having to do anything. That's another thing, is there's literally no reason for them to not keep him, because of one simple reason. Sony doesn't have to do anything. Sony does not have to make a movie. Because Sony, even though the Sony logo is there in Homecoming and it's going to be there in Far From Home, they don't make the movie. Sony does not make the movie. Marvel makes the movie. Not Sony. Sony just distributes it because they own the film rights. But they don't make the movie. So, what reason is there to stop the deal when Sony doesn't have to do anything and they get all the box office? They get all the box office from the Spider-Man movies. There's no reason at all for them to not continue the deal. And if for some reason they don't, the super slim chance that they don't, there's going to be riots in the streets, there's going to be riots on Twitter, there's going to be riots on YouTube, there's going to be riots, and people are going to legitimately boycott future Sony movies if they do so. Like, people are legitimately going to, all the people are like going to boycott Episode 9. Yeah. It's going to be like that for Sony movies. It's going to be like that for Sony movies. People are going to boycott any future Spider-Man movie. Maybe even Spider-Verse. Okay, they probably won't boycott a Spider-Verse sequel because everyone loves Spider-Verse, but Venom 2 or Kraven the Hunter or Mysterio, like any of the other movies they've been talking about, people are going to boycott them if they don't. People are going to legitimately boycott them if they drag Spider-Man out of the MCU. But I wouldn't worry about that because there's no way that's going to happen. Okay, where was I going with this? I completely got off track. But then again, that's kind of a history with this kind of stuff with me, as I tend to get off track when talking about this kind of stuff. Okay, where was I? But yeah, they could totally incorporate the Fantastic Four into the next Spider-Man movie. Like, Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four have a long relationship in the comics. One of the most famous ones is where Spider-Man breaks into the Baxter Building. Like, they could literally do that. Like, have Spider-Man break into the Baxter Building, if the Baxter Building does indeed exist in the MCU. Well, I mean, it would exist anyway. I mean, the Baxter Building would be a thing in the MCU regardless, but, would it be Avengers Tower, or would it be something else, is the thing we don't know yet. But we'll have to wait and see. But the Fantastic Four, I think, is going to show up in another movie before they show up in their own movie. Because Marvel needs to prove that they can do these characters right. No, actually, I should rephrase that. Marvel doesn't have to prove these characters are going to be right, because people already know they're going to do the Fantastic Four right. They already know they're going to do the Fantastic Four right. And even if they don't do them that great in like the small 0.000000000000001% chance that they don't completely nail the character, which they're going to, it'll still be 5 billion times better than anything Fox put out. So, needless to say, no one has any doubts in Marvel's ability with the Fantastic Four. It's the X-Men that are going to be a bit controversial. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people out there that can't wait to see the X-Men in the MCU. But there's a lot of people out there that have tons of attachment to the Fox series, and of course, Hugh Jackman. I mean, Hugh Jackman's not coming back. I think we've all accepted that at this point, but Hugh Jackman, Hugh Jackman is the Ryan Reynolds and the Robert Downey Jr. of Wolverine. He is completely enveloped that character. He is completely enveloped that character to the point where no one else is going to be able to truly take the reins. But obviously they can't just retire Wolverine. He's going to be in the MCU. I mean, come on. They can't not have Wolverine, but it's not going to be Hugh Jackman. It's not. It's not like with Iron Man, where Iron Man's going to be most likely done after Endgame. But when that happens, they're not going to bring Iron Man back. Like, Iron Man's going to either die in Endgame, or he's going to retire, and he's going to just have like cameo roles from then on, or maybe he just won't be there at all. But they're not going to recast Iron Man. Oh, you know how I said that people are going to boycott the heck out of Sony, and Sony's going to get so much, they're going to be destroyed if they don't renew the Spider-Man deal? If Marvel even dared to recast Robert Downey Jr., even like 10 years down the line when Iron Man's not being used anymore, people would, oh man, I can't see it, because it would be so big, it would be legendary. You have no idea. The backlash would be absolutely legendary if 5-10 years down the road, Marvel even if they considered recasting him, which I know they won't do, because Marvel's not that stupid. And Marvel, of course, there's no reason to recast the character. He's done his arc. He has served his point. Iron Man is one of the best movies. One of the best movies. Well, actually, it is one of the best movies in the MCU. But Iron Man is a character. He's legendary. But the reason why Iron Man is legendary, the reason why Iron Man is as big as he is today, is because of Robert Downey Jr. Go back to 2005. How many people knew who Iron Man was? Not many. More people knew about Spider-Man, X-Men, the Fantastic Four than they knew about Iron Man. Nowadays, everyone knows about Iron Man. Iron Man is the face of the MCU. And he's most likely going to die, or at least retire, or whatever, in Endgame. This is going to be his last major role. He's going to go out with a bang. Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man's going to go out with a bang. But there's no way it's going to get recast. No way. He's going to go out with dignity, and Marvel, I think, is going to let him be. Outside of cameos, I think this is going to be the end for Iron Man. But once again, I'm getting off track here. But the point is, Hugh Jackman's not coming back. He's not coming back. But people have that attachment, and I can't blame them. But Fantastic Four, and of course Deadpool, obviously, he's staying. I've already established that he's staying. He is fully staying. Nothing is changing about him at all. They're just going to plop him right into the MCU. Fantastic Four, people are going to be welcoming with open arms. X-Men, a bit more, is going to be a lot more divided, but overall people are going to be excited. And yeah, the next phase is, at the same time, but yeah, so the next phase is going to be very interesting for a couple of reasons. One, because it's going to be the beginning of a new era for Marvel. It's the beginning of a new era for Marvel. They're not going to have Iron Man or Captain America anymore. They're going to have new heroes taking the spotlight. And, of course, continuations of some of the older heroes, but the two main characters of the MCU are going to be gone. And the thing they've been building up since the first movie will be done. They're going to have to build up a new character. They're going to have new characters. They're going to have Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange, all that. But they're also going to have Black Widow, the Eternals. They're going to have Shang-Chi. We're going to get the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Deadpool. So there's tons and tons to look forward to in the MCU, even after Endgame. But who's going to be the big baddie? Because that's, of course, been one of the biggest things people have been talking about for ever since the deal was first announced, was once Thanos is gone, who's going to be the next phase villain? And there's multiple good candidates for that. The two that most people seem to be gravitating towards, and I can't blame them, is, of course, Galactus and Doctor Doom. Which one are they going to do first? I think Galactus. I think Galactus is the one they should do between the two. I mean, of course they're going to do Doom at some point. There's no way they won't do Doctor Doom. But heck, they might even do that Doctor Doom movie they were talking about. Because there's that script for Doctor Doom that was made by the guy that made Legion, and he actually got to talk with Kevin Feige recently about it. Nothing concrete, but there's a possibility that Doctor Doom might still get his own movie in the MCU. But of course, we'll have to wait and see. But who's going to be the next phase villain? If you asked me who I think it should be, I would say Galactus. One, because I should make it very clear. I am an MCU fan, not really a Marvel Comics fan. I don't know how exactly a lot of the character, how all this stuff works, but I know enough about Galactus and Doctor Doom to know that they are going to be easily, one of the two is going to be the next phase villain, without a doubt. I really should read some of the comics, honestly, but I haven't really gotten around to checking out some of the comics. But what I do know is, Galactus and Doctor Doom, though. Those are the two big ones, easily. And here's how I would say it. Which one they do first, I think it's going to come down to which one needs to be first. Both of them have been treated horribly by Fox. We can all agree on that. But which one was treated worse? I would probably say Galactus. Because Doctor Doom in Fan 4 Stick, at least he was there. At least he was actually there. He had a body and everything. He was actually there, and you could tell it was Doctor Doom. With Galactus, he was literally a cloud in space, as has been infamously known for. He didn't even show up. He didn't even get his gargantuan purple pink, the purple pink armor in space. He didn't get any of that. He didn't. It was not he didn't have his physical form where he's bigger than 1 billion planets or whatever. No, none of that. He didn't have his iconic anything. Nope. He was a cloud. He was a dark cloud. That is all he got. And that's why I think Galactus should be first. Because he deserves that redemption. I mean, both of them need redemption, but Galactus, man. I mean, he's going to go from a cloud to the classic Galactus we've all been waiting to see. Then that glory, man, when they show that, whether it's at a post-credit scene and when they show how the gargantuan classic Galactus on screen, it's gonna be legendary. But when Galactus finally gets shown up on screen, because we've seen Doom on screen. I mean, not right, not good, but we've seen Doom on screen. We have not seen Galactus on screen, not properly. We haven't seen his actual form. We've never gotten to see the iconic design on screen. And when we get to see that at the end of a post-credit scene in whatever movie they decide to cram it in, it's going to be legendary. And I think Galactus should be the first, era villain. Not phase villain, era villain. Who would be the first? Who would be? Because there's a difference between a phase villain and an era villain. An era villain would be, Thanos. Thanos is the villain they've been building up to since Iron Man 1. Whereas Loki was the one that they were building up, or was like Loki and Ultron, for example. Those are phase villains. Ultron, Loki were phase villains. Now, I guess if we're talking about that, that's a bit harder, but I mean, both of them would do great in either one. But, I'm not really the one to talk about that because I don't know a ton about Galactus and Doctor Doom to really make that call. But between the two, I'd like to see Galactus more so because Galactus needs that redemption. He needs to go from that cloud to an actual character. But yeah, I guess that's about it. I know I kind of rambled on here, went on several tangents, but yeah, the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Deadpool, they're home, and it's awesome. Even though it's a shame we're not going to be able to see them on screen for a couple years, but at least they're here. Marvel has them. Feige has them. They're no longer at Fox, the cold grips of Fox. Well, at least for the Fantastic Four. Now, once again, Logan and Deadpool were great. The other X-Men movies are kind of mixed. I've heard a lot. I've heard there's a lot of mixed things with the X-Men movies. Some people love them, some people hate them. Everyone loves Logan and Deadpool, though. So at least Fox got that right. At least Fox got 2, and 3, Deadpool 2 as well. I know, generally speaking, most people like the first Deadpool more, but yeah, Logan and Deadpool 1 and 2, at least they got that right. At least Fox got that right. The other ones are debatable. And Fantastic Four was eviscerated at Fox 3 times. Especially that last one. But yeah, that's all I really have to say. I mean, now we just have to kind of wait. We have to wait to see the official announcements now. Marvel has not posted any kind of welcome home message yet in the same way they did for Spider-Man, because when the Spider-Man deal was announced in February 2015, they put out a, welcome home Spider-Man tweet. They have not done that yet for the Fantastic Four, Deadpool, and X-Men yet. Probably because it wasn't really an announcement. It was just kind of something that happened. And also probably because they want to have the focus be on Endgame and stuff, which I totally understand. That they want to have all the focus be on Endgame. Now, the second Endgame, and most importantly, Far From Home is done, that's when I think that you're going to start seeing Marvel and Kevin Feige really start to talk about the X-Men and stuff. Now, as of right now, there's no more legal boundaries. Kevin Feige can talk about X-Men, Fantastic Four all he wants now, without any problems, without any limitations. I'm sure he's already got screenwriters and producers and writers already working on scripts. At this very moment, someone is writing a script for X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Deadpool. Well, maybe not Deadpool, because I think they're going to just bring over the current guys. Obviously, Ryan Reynolds is staying, but I think they're going to bring over the current guys that are working on Deadpool as well, because there's no reason not to. For the X-Men and Fantastic Four, though, especially Fantastic Four, I'm sure they've already are at least starting work on it. But we're not going to be able... But at the end of the day, we're not going to see anything, no logos, no nothing, until later this year, when Marvel inevitably does a Phase 4 unveiling event of some kind. I know Kevin Feige, I think, has said recently that probably won't be like it was in October 2014, where they had that whole conference and they revealed 5 years worth of movies. That probably wouldn't be like that, but either way, they're gonna start talking about movies, whether we get a big event like we did for Phase 3 or not. Later this year, Kevin Feige is gonna start talking about Phase 4 and beyond, and that's when we're gonna start seeing, that's when we're gonna start hearing X-Men. Actually, no, the reason they probably haven't talked about X-Men yet is because there's still 2 X-Men movies that haven't come out yet. Now, Fantastic Four and Deadpool, they could talk about that right now, without any problems. But X-Men, not quite, because there's still Dark Phoenix and New Mutants coming out, and I already went over all this in my last video where I talked about the future of the current 20th Century Fox movies, so go watch that if you want to hear my thoughts on Dark Phoenix and New Mutants and how exactly that's going to pan out going forward. But yeah, so we're just going to have to wait until Kevin Feige tells us stuff, basically, which hopefully won't be too long. I mean, once Far From Home is done, that's, I think, when we're going to start getting major drops. I mean, once Endgame is done, I think he's going to start talking, like really talking. I think he's going to start actually giving us information once Endgame is out. But once Far From Home is out and we get the big slate and everything, that's when we're going to start getting some really juicy information. That's when we're going to start getting casting choices and directors and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's a very exciting time to be a Marvel fan. I mean, Endgame is going to be huge. Absolutely huge. It's going to be amazing. Far From Home is going to be pretty good from what we can tell. You know, Mysterio looks awesome. It looks better than Homecoming, and I liked Homecoming. Most people liked Homecoming, but Far From Home looks even better. And, well, Fantastic Four, Deadpool, X-Men, they're here. They're here. They are here. Okay, I'm rambling, but yeah, they're here. So I hope you enjoyed it. We've now hit the 1 hour mark. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you've made it this far, then thank you. I really do mean it when I say thank you, because these videos, I think even I agree, are probably a little too long, because I just like rambling on about stuff. So if you've made it this far, I genuinely say thank you, and I really do appreciate it if you've made it this far. But with that being said, this is Logan509XP. And I'll see you guys next time.